The Dark Knight Rises begins with a sequence that is attempting to one-up the bank robbery from The Dark Knight. It opens with a jeep full of men approaching a small plane to hand off Dr. Pavel, a nuclear physicist, to the CIA. It would seem these men are mercenaries contracted by the CIA.
Don't worry, no charge for them.
Along with Dr. Pavel, they've brought 3 men whose faces they've hidden with sacks, saying these men work for Bane, and they were after Dr. Pavel too. CIA man is excited to hear this and tells the other CIA men with him to bring the sackheads on board. Alright, we are less than 1 minute into the movie and the post-Dark Knight Christopher Nolan writing is already rearing its ugly, thoughtless head. CIA man is here to pick up Dr. Pavel, who the CIA apparently hired mercenaries to help extract. The mercenaries come back with 3 extra men who they claim work for Bane and were trying to nab Dr. Pavel for themselves. The mercenaries offer these men on a silver platter for no extra charge. And CIA man doesn't find anything untoward about this at all. He does not question these Russian mercenaries exceeding the scope of the contract he hired them to complete and eager to do it on a pro bono basis.
Right.
He is not at all surprised at the sudden generosity of these mercs. The idea that these mercenaries he hired might be willing to work for someone else who has offered them a higher payday never enters his mind. He does not unmask any of the men on the spot. That would be awkward. He chooses to, without asking any questions or chancing a second thought, put them on the plane, keeping them in the same proximity of the man the CIA is desperate to keep away from them.
So he's an idiot.
CIA man then interrogates the sackheads by holding them at the open door of the airborne plane, asking them a question, shooting the gun next to their heads, and telling the others that he just threw them out of the plane.
He didn't fly so good!
So his interrogation tactic relies on the first man not making any noise to indicate to his fellow mercenaries that he had in fact not just been shot and thrown out of a plane. Also, for some reason, CIA man asks the first and second man 2 different questions.
Who paid you to grab Dr. Pavel? Tell me about Bane! Why does he wear the mask?
If you're not going to wait until you're back to a base to interrogate them properly, and you have to do this now, in a way that you might end up getting bumped out of an airborne plane yourself if the pilot hits a bit of turbulence, you would assume it's because you needed a certain piece of urgent information. But he just asks very generic questions, like, why does Bane wear a mask?
What color is my underwear?
With the second sackhead, CIA man makes a very interesting remark.
A lot of loyalty for a hired gun!
So he understands that hired guns aren't necessarily loyal, but it never crosses his mind to consider that his own hired gun might not be loyal to him.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Anyway, Bane calls his bluff, and we get our first treatment of Christopher Nolan's patented horrendous sound mixing.
At least you can talk! Who are you?
It doesn't matter who we are.
Yes, Bane is twice as loud as CIA man. Oh, and now Bane's Darth Vader breathing is clearly audible as loudly as everybody else's voice. I guess CIA man and his partners just didn't hear it down on the ground or at any point during this entire process, or Bane was holding his breath.
What are you, deaf?
Bingo!
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
When you hear this line at the beginning of the movie, it sounds like a cool bad guy line, until you watch the rest of the movie and realize that Bane got his mask in a prison hole surgery, and this line isn't just not remotely true.
Dr. Pavel refused our offer in favor of yours.
Now, we'll get to Bane's plan in a minute here. For now, we'll focus on the CIA's incompetence. As Bane is speaking, a much bigger plane creeps up behind the CIA plane. The pilots flying the CIA plane do not notice it until it is directly above theirs, causing it to literally rattle. Sure, whatever. Men from the Bane plane parachute down to the wings of the CIA plane and start shooting the agents through the windows. At no point do the pilots of the CIA plane take any evasive action whatsoever to deal with the multiple men who are perched on their wings. They actually keep it on a perfectly straight, level path.
Keep going! You're good! You're good! You're good!
Bane's men jam some hooks into the side of the plane to attach it to the Bane plane so that their plane can basically invert it and drag it along. Why? Well, we'll get there. As the CIA agents have all fallen to the front of the plane, a couple other of Bane's men rappel into the plane that has had its tail ripped off with a dead body and a body bag. Bane then performs a blood transfusion from Dr. Pavel to the corpse, which they then leave in the plane to account for Dr. Pavel's faked death. And as Bane and his men strap in to get pulled back to their plane, Bane stops one of them, telling him he needs to go down with the plane because
They expect one of us in the wreckage, brother.
which his fanatical soldier complies with without protest. He asks Bane if they've started the fire, and Bane assures him in his final moments that, yes, the fire rises, which isn't important now, but will raise a question later in the movie. Alright, let's go over Bane's ridiculous plan. Why does Bane get caught on purpose? Well, the line we're given is this one.
Dr. Pavel refused our offer in favor of yours. We had to find out what he told you.
Now, that in and of itself is a strange line. It implies that Bane is looking for Dr. Pavel to make sure he doesn't fall into the hands of the CIA, and the CIA is looking for Dr. Pavel to make sure he doesn't fall into the hands of Bane or any other terrorist group. But we know from later in the movie that this isn't Bane's motivation at all. He needs Dr. Pavel because he has the know-how to turn a nuclear fusion reactor into an atomic bomb. So I'm not sure what Bane means when he says he needs to know what Pavel told the CIA, as though Pavel had sensitive info on him. But whatever. Better question. Why did he and his men have to get caught like this? It would seem that they had found Dr. Pavel, and rather than just taking him and going, they paid the CIA's mercenaries to turn them over to the CIA with sacks over their heads, hoping that they would put them on the same plane without removing the sacks first. Then, once on the plane, his other men parachute down from another plane, shoot the CIA men through the windows, being careful to not hit Dr. Pavel, attach hooks to the plane so that their plane can drag it through the air. Ignore the physics behind a plane actually towing another plane. I'll suspend my disbelief for that. Why was this the plan?
Not a great plan.
Presumably, they want to make it look like Dr. Pavel died in a normal plane crash. But they've manufactured one where the wings of the plane end up miles away from the tail of the plane, which ends up miles away from the cabin.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
There's nothing remotely natural about this, not to mention there would be bullet holes in the cabin of the plane and in all the CIA agents. But let's get to the most insane part. Bane faking Dr. Pavel's death by transfusing his blood into a corpse. This plan relies on the assumption that upon finding the crash, the powers that be are going to determine who the passengers were by testing their DNA, and they will do so not with a sample of their hair or their dental markings, but by drawing a sample of his blood. And look at this! One of the guys is doing chest compressions on the corpse to... what? Get the blood that was just transfused into his arm to the rest of his body? He's dead!
Stop! He's already dead!
Blood can't circulate in a dead body no matter how hard you count to stay alive. And if the defense is he's not dead yet, then he would have his own blood that would immediately dilute the new blood, so that doesn't work. And if you're asking why I'm taking this so seriously, it's because Christopher Nolan always takes care to make his movies as grounded and realistic as possible. That's why Bane looks like this and not this. He's not only hoping that they test his DNA by the blood in one specific arm, but also that nobody looks at him and says, that's not Dr. Pavel. Pavel would be a couple decades older than this fighting age man. This is the worst faked death ever.
It's insane.
Actually, you know what? It's really bad. But it might not even be the worst fake death in this movie, but we'll get there. Lastly, Bane tells one of his men that he has to stay behind because they're expecting one of their bodies in the wreckage. He says this because of what CIA man says at the start of his interrogation.
The flight plan I just filed with the agency lists me, my men, but only one of you!
But this is part of his interrogation tactic. Bane calls CIA man's bluff that he's not killing the men when he fires his gun, so why doesn't he think he's bluffing when he says that? If he really did only log one of them, then why isn't he shooting them before throwing them out of a plane?
Or perhaps he's wondering why someone would shoot a man before throwing him out of a plane.
But the most egregious part of this plan to kidnap Dr. Pavel cannot be emphasized enough. Bane already had him. He says he let himself get caught so that he could make sure Dr. Pavel didn't tell the CIA anything, but I don't even know what he's talking about.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means.
He gains no knowledge from his time on that plane. He risks everything to carry out an elaborate plan when he could just take the doctor, fake his death in a much more believable way, and leave with him. Visually, the scene is absolutely stunning. It's filmed with, as far as I'm aware, no CGI, using actual aircraft, stuntmen, and no doubt a prop plane that can be towed through the air by another. In regards to practical effects, it's a straight-up masterclass. And most people, basically every Christopher Nolan stan out there, either don't see past the effects or willfully ignores what they do see. Because these practical effects are covering up convoluted, incoherent writing that falls apart if you dedicate even 1% of your attention to what is actually going on in this scene. And some more honest Nolan worshippers might even concede that point, but hand-wave it away, saying that the payoff of the set piece is worth the abysmal writing leading up to it. Except that you could very easily have both. Just don't have Bane get himself captured. Have Dr. Pavel be on the plane with the CIA, all relaxing on their journey home, perhaps with CIA man asking Pavel about the masked man, when Bane and his men descend down onto their plane and go from there. Have the pilot put the plane on autopilot while he tends to something in the back to explain why the plane remains on a steady course throughout all of this. And the only issue you're left with is the magical blood transfusion. It would still be a sick introduction to Bane, he wouldn't come out looking like a cerebral minimalist, and it would take me 30 seconds to criticize rather than 10 minutes. Making it simpler would make it better, but Nolan can't seem to bring himself to do anything simple, so you end up with a Gordian knot of a plot with a nice coat of practical effects paint slathered over it. Welcome to the first installment in our series exposing Christopher Nolan as the most overrated director of all time. We're basically going to dive into every movie he's made since The Dark Knight, and we're not going to get caught up in the practical effects and grounded realism that far too many people get lost in when thinking about his work. We're going to focus in on his writing. You know, the thing that actually makes the story, but his directorial shortcomings will come up as well. I picked The Dark Knight Rises as the jumping off point for this series in large part because of this opening scene, even though as you can probably tell by the length of the video that we're going to go through the whole movie. These 5 minutes epitomize Christopher Nolan. You may say that if you've seen this sequence, you've seen Nolan. From here, as we go through the rest of the film, we're going to stop and make note of those detrimental elements that plague almost all of Christopher Nolan's movies. And throughout the rest of the series, you'll see just how repetitive his writing and collection of flaws is, from featuring basically the same character in every movie, to the limits his writing and directing place on his stars, to his lack of emotional depth, to... well, I won't spoil everything just yet. Let's get back to this disaster of a sequel. Back in Gotham, the mayor and police commissioner and the various bigwigs of Gotham City are celebrating Harvey Dent Day, commemorating the day Harvey died 8 years ago. Seriously, nobody has figured out that Harvey Dent went crazy at the end of The Dark Knight? I mean, he killed 4 people, including 2 cops, and threatened to kill Gordon's family. I don't know, I'm just doubtful that this lie stuck, but that's more of a problem with The Dark Knight, so I won't belabor the point here. In the wake of his death, Gotham passed the Dent Act. How the Dent Act helped Gotham solve the problem of organized crime, we don't know, and we don't have to know. We're just going to remember that that was the effect of it, that it helped Gotham eliminate organized crime. Jim Gordon gets up to the podium ready to give a speech on the truth about Harvey Dent that he opts not to give. Instead, he reiterates the mayor's point that the Dent Act is responsible for the organized crime machine in Gotham coming to a halt. Anyway, Alfred, whose character is going to be thoroughly assassinated in this movie, goes to the house's catering staff looking for a Mrs. Bolton to bring up dinner to the East Drawing Room. When Mrs. Bolton doesn't respond, Selina Kyle perks up and volunteers, so Alfred gives her a key and tells her to place the tray on the table and go. While up in the East Drawing Room, she notices a door ajar, and Bruce hears her walking around on the hardwood in her heels because she's a very sneaky cat burglar. She's moseying along on this vital mission of hers, checking out a target that has been heavily used for bow and arrow practice, when Bruce shows up behind her and puts an arrow an inch from her face. So I guess Bruce has spent much of the last 8 years practicing his archery. It'd be interesting if that had a payoff later in the movie, but it doesn't. Bruce notices that Selina is wearing his mother's pearl necklace and reveals that his uncrackable safe he keeps them in is now empty. So Selina drops the demure girl act and kicks Bruce's cane out from under him, jumps out the window, and hitches a ride with the sleazy congressman. And after only 6 minutes, we're back with our next installment of Incompetent Ridiculous Plan. What is Selina's plan here? She's here to steal Bruce's fingerprints. She gets into the house because Mrs. Bolton was unavailable when Alfred asked for her. Did Selina know one of the house staff would be asked to take Bruce's dinner up to him? Did she somehow know that Alfred would specifically ask for Mrs. Bolton? Did she make sure that Mrs. Bolton would be indisposed when Alfred asked for her? None of that seems plausible. It seems like she just lucked her way into the house.
That is the most real, authentic, hysterical laugh of my entire life because that is not a plan.
And once inside, there happens to be a door ajar that leads into a room with a safe where Bruce keeps his mother's pearl necklace. Now, she's only there to steal Bruce's fingerprints, but she decides to jeopardize her entire mission by opening the safe out of sheer curiosity, like a sentient traffic cone. She is doing this job to get the clean slate program so she can start over. Everything rests on this job for her. If she just took Wayne's prints and left, there would be nothing for Bruce to go off of. He would likely have no idea that she was even in there, and she would have gotten away scot-free. Instead, though, she not only steals the necklace, but then she lingers to look at an archery target, you absolute walnut! Presumably she's smart enough to deduce that the tray she's brought up is for Bruce Wayne, and he'd likely be coming in to get it shortly. And if not, Alfred expected her to come straight back. She's not concerned that the staff might send someone to see why she hasn't come back yet, and they might ask where she got that necklace. This is the event that gets Bruce Wayne involved in this story, and it only happens through a series of lucky coincidences and aggressive stupidity. In other words, it's poorly written, especially considering that Nolan wants the audience to believe that Selina is actually not retarded, and very resourceful.
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
Back at GCPD, we're introduced to Officer Blake, who goes up to the roof with the bat signal to tell Commissioner Gordon that the congressman never made it home to his wife. Gordon seems surprised that this is a police matter.
That's a job for the police.
Well, yeah, you stale bagel. Missing persons typically fall under the purview of the police. What's actually ridiculous is that this immediately gets elevated all the way to the police commissioner when it's still the same night. That would be, in the words of Yelena Belova, small potatoes. But Gordon, after deflecting a question from Blake about the night Dent died, actually personally goes to see about the congressman. The next morning, that's important, Alfred brings Bruce his breakfast, only to find that Bruce isn't in his room and his bed is made. Why is this remotely worth noting? Because the night before, Alfred and Bruce had this exchange.
One of the maids. Perhaps you should stop letting them in this side of the house.
Perhaps you should start learning to make your own bed.
Ah, so a setup and payoff. This is the level Christopher Nolan is capable of in this movie. Later in the video, we'll compare some of the setups and payoffs in The Dark Knight Rises to similar ones in The Dark Knight, and you'll see just how starkly Nolan's writing deteriorated in those 4 years. Alfred finds Bruce in the Batcave looking into Selina. It turns out, Selina had been wearing the fingerprints of a random man when she robbed him. So she was so careful in a job that should theoretically leave no trace as to use someone else's fingerprints, but also she dilly-dallied after she got what she needed. In other words, she's really intelligent, but not when the plot requires her to not be so it can progress. We have a word for plots that require characters' stupidity to move it forward. Bad. Alfred suggests that they call the police before she fences the pearls, and Bruce rejects the idea because he thinks Selina likes them too much to fence. Why he believes this? Only because he's read the script. There is no reason for him to make that assumption about a cat burglar. Alfred and Bruce have an exchange where Alfred points out that Bruce never moved on after Rachel's death, and that he wants Bruce to return to the world now that he hung up the cape and cowl. During the exchange, Alfred delivers this line.
So now you're trying to set me up with a jewel thief?
At this point, I'd set you up with a chimpanzee if it brought you back to the world.
It's not important now, but believe it or not, it will be later. Alfred then tells Bruce the story of when Bruce left Gotham for 7 years before Batman Begins. While he was away, Alfred would take a yearly trip to Florence, Italy, and sit at a cafe where he would daydream about seeing Bruce there with a wife. He says he never wanted Bruce to come back to Gotham because all that was here for him was pain and tragedy on account of his parents' death. Alfred basically tells Bruce he wishes he had run from his problems. He wants him to move forward now, but what he describes is just avoidance. He wanted him to not confront the pain, merely flee from it. The story is told with actual flashback shots of Alfred at the cafe in Florence. It's incredibly ham-handed foreshadowing that this is the life Bruce will end up with and accomplishes nothing for the story other than that. Let's compare it to a story Alfred tells Bruce in The Dark Knight. Long ago, Alfred was in Burma trying to help the government catch a bandit who had been stealing precious gems and throwing them away, just doing the stealing for good sport. And he tells Bruce that some men, well, I'll just let him say it.
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
In this moment, Bruce learns a crucial piece of information about his foe, that his motive is simply chaos. But this story is not just a way to pass along important info to Bruce. It actually becomes a setup for later in the movie after Rachel dies. And amidst his mourning, Bruce is angry at himself for letting Joker get to the point where he was able to put Harvey and Rachel in those warehouses. He brings us back to Alfred's story.
That bandit in the forest in Burma. Did you catch him? How?
we burned the forest down.
It sets up an ethical question for Batman in the third act of the movie. To what lengths will he go to stop the Joker? Will he put him down for good? Or perhaps violate the privacy of everyone in Gotham by using a surveillance system that would make George Orwell nauseous? This time around, nothing even remotely so intelligent. Also, the shots of Alfred and Florence are shot in IMAX with the larger aspect ratio. Now, in the hands of a better director who carefully selects every aspect of the movie to assist in telling the story, this choice may have meaning, that this life Alfred imagines for Bruce is a bigger and better path for him. But it will become eminently clear throughout this movie that Nolan does not have story on his mind whatsoever when flipping aspect ratios. He just uses the IMAX camera literally whenever he can because he just likes it. Later in the video, I'll cut a montage of all the times Nolan switches from letterbox to IMAX and back again in a time frame so short it won't get flagged for copyright by YouTube just because he had an establishing shot or something he could use the IMAX camera for. Back in Gotham, Officer Blake is responding to a scene where a boy has washed up in a runoff point from a sewer. He actually instantly recognizes him as being from a boys' home where he volunteers.
Wow! What do you know?
A character conveniently chancing upon a vital piece of information for the plot to move forward? It's as if a hand is guiding these characters to exactly where they need to be for this story to unfold. It's probably a left hand. And I understand that sometimes coincidences have to happen for stories to get underway and that coincidences happen in real life, but I think they should generally be avoided in movies if they can be. And what's dumb is that this one could easily be avoided. Blake could have just been at the police station when he overheard two cops talking about what they had found, recognized the name of the boys' home, and offered to look into it more, bringing him to the sewer. And that can even be accomplished off-screen with just a throwaway line to the sanitation workers about how he knew the victim. But whatever, I'll let it go, I guess. So Blake goes and visits the boys' home, where he finds that the Wayne Foundation is no longer bankrolling it, and that when boys age out, they often end up down in the sewers because that's where orphans belong.
That's right. Hide in the sewers like the rat you are.
No, it's because there's work down there or something. At night, Selina Kyle goes to a seedy bar with the congressman to hand off Bruce's fingerprints. Originally, she only hands over 4 of them, keeping the thumb in case her contact double-crosses her. When that happens, and she's forced to hand it over, she uses the congressman's phone to text her friend to bring in the last print. Since the cops are frantically searching for him, they're tracing his phone, and dozens of them converge on the bar, giving Selina the chance to escape. Now, putting aside the luck that the police sent an entire SWAT team to the bar ready for a firefight, rather than just one car to check inside the bar, this is an intelligent plan by Selina. I just wish she wasn't made dumb for the sake of the plot to move forward when necessary.
Keep some pressure on that, sweetheart.
This is a good time to point out that Anne Hathaway as Catwoman is one of the most miscast roles, not just in The Dark Knight Rises, but in Christopher Nolan's entire filmography. Well, recent decisions aside. I know that this one kind of splits fans. Some people hate it, some people really love it. These first 2 scenes we see of her kind of exemplify my problem with her. In both, she feigns being a poor, helpless girl before eventually revealing her true, seductive, sultry nature. And in both cases, I think she's much more convincing as the helpless girl. The Catwoman side is what seems to be an act. She doesn't come off as a seductive woman, she comes off as a woman trying to act seductive. This line sounds forced. Just look at Anne Hathaway's eyes, compared to, say, Zoe Kravitz's or Michelle Pfeiffer's. Hathaway's got these big, round, innocent doe eyes that seem like they were made in a factory to play a chick flick protagonist. Zoe Kravitz's eyes would stop a man in his tracks. The police follow men from the bar through the streets to an alley with a manhole cover, and Jim Gordon leads the charge down into the sewers, where he gets captured and brought to see Bane in Bane's underground fortress that would make Gustavo Fring salivate. Bane has his man search him, and the man finds the speech that Gordon chickened out in delivering detailing the truth about Harvey Dent. Now, by my watch, this is the night after that event. Why does he still have this speech on his person? You may think he's just been working nonstop since the event trying to find the congressman and so hasn't gotten the chance to get rid of it or put it in a safe place. But no, he's wearing different clothes from the night before, so he changed out of his original clothes and put the speech back in his new pocket. What is he, like Spider-Man in Brand New Day? He just makes sure this incredibly important note he's written ends up wherever it can be most useful for the plot? You can call this a nitpick, and yeah, it's not a huge deal, but it's just another example of how Nolan's writing has these awkward cases where characters have to make kinda questionable decisions for the plot to advance. And in many cases like this, they're pretty easily avoidable. How many times have we said that? Just have this happen the same night as they start looking for the congressman. It's sloppy writing where you wonder if he even went through and redrafted, or had anyone else read it for him. Gordon manages to escape by rolling into the runoff while Bane is distracted, and Bane attaches a tracking device to his screw-up of a henchman and shoots him, sending him down the runoff to see if he ends up in the same outflow as Gordon. I actually like that. I'm not always a fan of movie villains killing their henchmen willy-nilly just to say to the audience, see, he's evil, but that's a good one. On a hunch, Officer Blake goes to check the outflow that Jimmy was found at, and sure enough, Gordon is there and he can get him to a hospital. Blake then shows up at Wayne Manor and gets in by threatening to bring a warrant to investigate Harvey Dent's murder. Alfred seems shockingly unsurprised that this random cop has seemingly figured out that Batman is Bruce Wayne, and lets him in so that he can ask Bruce to return as Batman. How does Blake know this? I think it might be the single worst instance of someone figuring out a superhero's secret identity of all time. That's not an exaggeration. You can let me know in the comments if there's a worse one. Blake tells Bruce about the fact that he's an orphan too, and how he was always angry as a kid and eventually had to learn to hide the anger behind a smile, like a mask. And one day, Bruce came to visit the boys' home Blake was at, and Blake recognized the same look on his face. And from that, he knows Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Are you me?
Literally, there is nothing else supporting his insane leap in logic. It's just, I'm an angry orphan, you're an angry orphan, therefore, you're Batman. Like, he doesn't even say that he once met Batman and saw the same look again, which still wouldn't be enough. He just assumes, I guess, that Batman was an angry orphan? There's nothing more I can even say about it. This would be like if someone bumped into me on the street and was like, wait, I have a dog, and you have a dog, oh my gosh, you're boss sauce. Like, what? How do you know that? Well, I just know.
You just know.
But this inspires Bruce to come back to the world. As an excuse to visit Gordon in the hospital, he gets his knee checked out by a doctor doing his best impression of the doctor from Arrested Development.
He's going to be all right. Yes, he's lost his left hand, so he's going to be all right.
I've seen worse cartilage in knees.
It's good.
No, that's because there is no cartilage in your knee.
Yeah, Bruce has no cartilage in his knee, elbows, or shoulders. Boy, it's gonna be tough for him to fight as Batman with no cartilage in his major joints.
Okay. I'm not quite...
Bruce then goes to a charity masquerade ball where he runs into Miranda Tate, whose character is written, you'll never guess.
Poorly.
But we'll come to her later. Bruce is really just here to get his mother's pearls back from Selina. They dance, they talk, blah blah blah. Selina says she does more to help people as a cat burglar than Bruce Wayne, who has employed thousands of people and developed innovations that have made people's lives better because she's retarded, blah blah blah. She assumes every man wants to sleep with her because the script is telling us this is Selina Kyle rather than doing the work to show us it is, blah blah blah. She foreshadows the socialist uprising, kisses him because she's Catwoman, I guess, and steals his valet ticket. Bruce goes to Lucius Fox, who brings up a clean energy fusion project that Bruce scrapped that kinda tanked Wayne Enterprises. Fox shows him a new bat vehicle, this one of the aerial variety, and he mentions that the autopilot doesn't work. You know why he says it, I know why he says it, and I'm gonna tell you later why I hate it. Back at the Batcave, if you're wondering how Bruce would fight when he has no cartilage in his knee and walks with a limp, well, you're about to get your answer. He has a magical brace that not only restores his knee, but makes his legs strong enough to kick through a brick wall. I just love when writers create unnecessary problems or obstacles for characters in the story and then just write a hand wave to fix their own serious problem that nobody forced them to have in the first place. You know, it seems Wayne Enterprises could probably sell that brace and make a lot of their money back that they lost. And believe it or not, his brace is actually going to come up again later in the movie. Also, he doesn't have a brace on either arm, despite the fact that the doctor said there is no cartilage in his elbows or shoulders either, but whatever. Actually, no, not whatever. This is dumb. Nolan has created a problem for his protagonist to overcome and then just brushes it aside. He does this throughout the movie. And there's no excuse for it. It's not like he's picking up somebody else's crap story and has to make do with it. Just don't make Bruce have a limp. Nobody forced you to do this. And a lot of these criticisms of mine may seem minor to you. I don't think most of them are, but even if that's what you think, fine. Can you deny that these are problems? They're in virtually every scene. Self-inflicted wounds, and all of these small story beats make up the overarching story. Anywho, Alfred starts telling Bruce about Bane, and tells him about the very prison that Bruce is going to end up in, and that he was excommunicated by the League of Shadows. It's fine, not as good as other Alfred scenes in other Dark Knight movies, but not damaging. What's important is that he kind of suggests that Bruce might not be able to beat Bane. The next day, Glenn Powell is getting his shoes shined. Yeah, do you remember he's in this movie? That's kind of fun. But Bane and his men show up to mount an attack on the stock exchange, and while Bane gets stopped going through security for not taking off his helmet, his men are already past it, posing as a janitor and the guy shining Glenn Powell's shoes, and they get their guns out. This is a far too common movie oversight. Characters want to get into a secure area that they won't be able to get their weapons into, so they somehow just get the weapons into the area off screen so they're already there. Also, if Bane was just going to beat up the security guards and walk in, why did his men need to already be inside? They could have just walked in right behind him.
You stupid!
And yes, his plan here is inherently flawed too, but we'll get to that. He uses Glenn Powell's badge to access a computer and plugs in a device that is going to make a bunch of bad options investments on Bruce Wayne's behalf to drain his fortune. The cops show up and Captain Cliché wants to treat it as a hostage situation, while a guy who managed to get out of the building tells him that they have access to the trading desk, which makes this a robbery. And Captain Cliché says,
Trading desk. I'm not risking my men for your money.
Okay. It would seem that nobody in this movie has even the most basic idea about finance or wealth. Like, I get the villains are going to do a whole socialist uprising, so you'd think that the retardedness is just limited to the bad guys, but then a good character says something like this, and you wonder what Nolan is doing. And I get that Captain Cliché serves as kind of an antagonist to be an obstacle for Blake, but stop making all your characters smooth-brained Neanderthals. This guy doesn't understand how the stock market works. I mean, Bane could literally be going after the police pensions funds right now. And the other cop says he keeps his money in his mattress. Like that means anything other than that he's a human-shaped chicken nugget.
Hey, Patrick, what am I now?
Stupid?
They cut the internet to the building, so Bane says,
Time to go mobile.
and I'll admit with Tom Hardy's delivery, it's a cool line. A motorcycle chase ensues, which is a pretty good sequence. I will note, it gets dark very quickly. Why do I note this? Well, it gets dark rapidly because presumably Bane and his men pull this heist near the end of the trading day. The reason they do it that way is so that we can have Batman making his reemergence at night, which I understand for cinematic reasons, but you've sacrificed your story for that, because for Bane's plan, that is... what's the word? Oh, stupid! The program doesn't finish running until it's completely dark out, which means it finishes after the market closes for the day. So the options trades meant to bankrupt Bruce Wayne won't go through until the market opens the next day. And after a terrorist attack just happened on the stock exchange, the SEC would certainly not open it until they can sort out what happened and undo whatever was done. They didn't open the market after 9/11, and if anyone feels like I'm getting too deep in the weeds about the writing, I have two responses that will apply to every Nolan movie we examine in this series. First, if your script can't hold up to the scrutiny of someone just analyzing it, then it's not good. And second, this entire series is building a case that Christopher Nolan is an overrated filmmaker. People say he's one of, if not the, best director of all time. If that were true, his movies could withstand a small YouTube channel taking a closer look at them. And here's just a bonus third reason. Once again, he did not have to make Bane aggressively stupid to get the scene he wanted. It's like the opening plane sequence all over again. Just have them rob the stock market in the beginning of the day, Bruce finds out about it, Bane is spotted that night, and then Batman goes after him. Done. Easy. As they're chasing terrorists who attack the stock market, Captain Cliché gets distracted and decides to go after Batman, and he calls every single cop in the city, even those not on duty, to take part in the chase. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but this isn't even the only time in this movie that every single cop in the city is called to the same location. Other than all of that, the chase scene is cool. Batman makes his way to an alley where he's stashed the bat and escapes the cops that way. While it's going on, Selina is robbing director Krennic, looking for the payout she never received for getting Wayne's fingerprints. Oh, that reminds me, during the stock market robbery, we see no indication that they actually used Bruce's fingerprints for anything. It seems like you'd want to include a shot to pay off that whole setup. But she ambushes Krennic and demands the clean slate, a plot device that can erase her record, her identity, and give her a fresh start. Bane's men surround her on the rooftop and Batman shows up to help her. And during the fight that ensues, we get the most insane line in the movie, and it might be in the running for worst line in Nolan's entire filmography. And believe me, that is saying something.
You gotta be kidding me.
No guns, no killing.
Where's the fun in that?
Where's the fun in no killing? That's what Catwoman said. Not, that's a dumb rule, not, well, that makes things harder, but where's the fun in no killing? Let me just spell out what this line means. Bruce Wayne, Batman, is going to fall in love with and leave Gotham, Alfred, the Batman, and his family's company behind for a woman who finds fun in killing. And if anyone wants to levy the defense that she's not serious, fine, prove it. Prove it with evidence from the rest of the movie up to this point, or after, for that matter. What we see from Selina Kyle is that she's incredibly angry and really hates rich people. We've seen nothing to suggest that this line doesn't mean exactly what she says. Now, the whole Batman and Catwoman love arc in this movie is done horrendously badly. There is no development of it. They just end up together to pay off Alfred's stupid dream for Bruce. But this line just makes it so eminently worse. And for the 20th time I'm saying this about something really bad in the movie, it's so unnecessary. Nolan keeps shooting his script in the foot without realizing it. Maybe because he's actually not a great writer. Batman asks Catwoman what she did with Bruce's fingerprints, and she tells him that she sold them to Krennic and that he was very interested in the stock market attack. Back in the Batcave, Bruce immediately finds coded trades and his fingerprints. How is the first thought not immediately, oh, they used my fingerprints to make stock trades in my name? I mean, I would assume that since Krennic is involved and he wants Wayne Enterprises, they sold off all of Bruce's shares of Wayne Enterprises for Krennic to buy up. But he just has Alfred send it to Fox to try and decode the trades. Whatever. Alfred gets mad and says that after running that errand to Fox, he's done. He will no longer help Bruce be Batman because he thinks Bruce has to move on from Batman and he'll die fighting Bane. This decision makes no sense for Alfred's character. Alfred helped Bruce become Batman. He's helped him through all the years of being Batman. He's seen Bruce join the League of Shadows, not kill but kinda kill Ra's al Ghul, and create a sonar surveillance system to spy on the entire city. And now he's hit his breaking point? Because Bane can punch gooder than Bruce? Why didn't he leave or tell Bruce about Rachel's letter at any point during the last 8 years when Bruce was just a recluse so that he would be forced to go touch grass? Alfred wants Bruce to return to the world.
At this point, I'd set you up with a chimpanzee if it brought you back to the world.
Well, Batman's return kind of necessarily means Bruce's return. Batman almost always requires Bruce Wayne to do some things as himself at times. This has already happened in this movie. And to try to spur Bruce Wayne back to the world, Alfred removes himself, basically the last connection Bruce Wayne has to the world, from the equation. How is this supposed to go any other way than Bruce diving 100% into his Batman persona? I think this will be its own video in this series, probably a shorter one, but Christopher Nolan doesn't seem to see his characters as inherently valuable. He seems to see them as vessels for the plot and the set pieces he wants to unfold. So characters in his movies often act in opposition to their own established nature and goals, like this, so the plot Nolan wants can proceed without too much friction.
Seems you made a series of large put options on the futures exchange. Those options expired at midnight last night.
That's just not how the stock exchange works, and it really shouldn't take long to prove that the trades made during a terrorist attack are fraudulent. You know what, I'm done talking about Bane's second dumb plan. Bruce is broke, somehow, and Krennic is gonna take over Wayne Enterprises. So Bruce agrees to show Miranda Tate the fusion reactor so that the board gets behind her instead of Krennic. Why showing her the fusion reactor gets the board behind her, I don't know, but who cares? And here we get another brain-dead plot point in the movie. Miranda Tate invested a bunch of money with Wayne Enterprises to build this nuclear fusion reactor. They built it, then Dr. Pavel published a paper on weaponized fusion reactions, and Bruce realized that someone could turn his fusion reactor into a nuclear weapon, so he shut the project down. Okay, so he apparently did not know that a fusion reactor could potentially be used to make a nuclear bomb until a Russian scientist wrote a paper on it. And when he finally figured it out, he was concerned enough to scrap the project, but not concerned enough to get rid of the actual completed fusion reactor.
Watch. Uh-oh. I'm someone else. Are you fooled? I'm not Commissioner Gordon. He's gone.
Who are you? Where's Commissioner Gordon?
Even the supposedly smart characters are reduced to potatoes with Wi-Fi. When Krennic doesn't become CEO of Wayne Enterprises, he gets mad and yells at Bane for having his construction crews going all over the city. So I guess Bane's men are actually Krennic's? We'll bank that for a little later. Krennic says he's still in charge and the bad guy chokes him out.
So I'm still in command?
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, Director.
Oh, whoops, wrong clip.
I'm in charge.
Do you feel in charge?
Bruce goes to visit Selina to ask for her help on Batman's behalf to find Bane, and I find it kind of funny that with all the conversations where Bruce is telling Selina from Batman and vice versa, she doesn't suspect that they're just the same person. Like, the first time you watch this, you kind of figured they're both just doing a bit, but no, she actually believes him. Anyway, he goes home and Miranda Tate is waiting for him outside Wayne Manor. They build a fire and sleep together. I don't know why. I mean, I guess I know why Bruce sleeps with her. He's a warm-blooded man, simple as that. But why does she sleep with him? To have some manipulative control over him so she shows him where the fusion reactor is and puts her in charge of Wayne Enterprises? Oh wait, she already got those things. She says they can take her plane and run away together. Why? She just told him she would take care of his parents' legacy. If the idea is she wants to gain Bruce's trust, which she already has, then why is she promising him one thing then suggesting another thing that would seem to negate that promise? This whole scene feels like a box to check because Talia is historically a love interest for Bruce in the comic books. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it makes the end where he leaves with Catwoman really kinda awkward. Batman meets Catwoman in the tunnels that night and offers her potentially the clean slate in exchange for her helping find Bane. She can't believe he doesn't trust her, which is of course brainless because she's literally a criminal who's about to double-cross him.
From here, Bane's men patrol the tunnels. They're not your average brawlers.
You know, this is as good a time as any to touch on the men that follow Bane. Who are they? Are they rejects from the League of Shadows? Are they Krennic's construction workers? Are they lost orphans who wandered into the sewers when they aged out of the boys' home? If so, they seem pretty angry. Blake might think all of them are Batman. Why are they following Bane? The guy at the beginning seems really willing to die for Bane's ridiculous plan. Are they all just socialists who have bought into Bane's plan for Gotham? Don't they know it's going to end with all of them dying in a nuclear explosion? How does he get this kind of devotion? Scarecrow's henchmen made sense in Batman Begins. They're mob members working in the drug trade. Ra's al Ghul's men made sense. They're the League of Shadows. The Joker's henchmen made sense. He has the mob's balls in a vice grip and their resources at his disposal. These men don't. They need some exploration, or at least an explanation, and we seem to have multiple possible answers provided to us by the script, but none is really enough to explain how he has these men so loyal and devoted they're ready for an inevitable death. Selina leads Bruce to Bane's hideout, where a cage door shuts and traps Batman in with Bane. Now before we get to the fight that ensues, which is a generally very positive scene with just a couple instances of subpar filmmaking, when the cage closes, the aspect ratio snaps from letterbox to IMAX. I like this transition, and in a different movie, it would be a moment worthy of praise. Except that this movie is straight up schizophrenic when it comes to its aspect ratio. We all know that Christopher Nolan loves IMAX, but if you choose, for some reason, to re-watch this movie, actually just watch the top and bottom of the screen. It jumps from standard format to IMAX between scenes so much it will make your head spin. Here's a little compilation of Nolan using IMAX in this film for random scenes, just because he can.
Gonna swing your things.
Bruce Wayne, as I live in...
Back to business.
How the hell did Miranda Tate get the inside track?
You're locking her up here. The Ted Act allows non-segregation.
That's gonna fall. Man, adding into a trap.
We're seeing literally thousands of these heading into the sewers, which mayor, with literally thousands of these.
Resign! And do you accept this man's resignation?
The time of plague. Some of the other prisoners. Not a man from privilege.
You see, in the hands of a really good director, a movie's aspect ratio can be as much a part of the story as the dialogue between characters. The Grand Budapest Hotel is shot in different aspect ratios for each of the 3 time periods the story takes place in, helping to establish the audience in each different era. A Ghost Story is shot in 4:3 aspect ratio with rounded corners to give the audience a feeling of being trapped. Mommy in 2014 did something similar with a 1:1 aspect ratio that expands for part of it to give a sense of freedom before closing back in. Everything Everywhere All at Once uses multiple aspect ratios for different universes. The typical way directors tend to use that IMAX aspect ratio is in preparing the audience for a big action set piece, the picture expanding to fill the entire screen in accordance with the tension rising in the movie. Catching Fire did this famously well as Katniss watches Cinna get beaten to death in front of her before rising up to the arena, entering I guess that would be the third act of that movie. Nolan uses IMAX for most of his action scenes in this movie, and that makes sense, although it would be more impactful if he only used it for the biggest ones, like just the plane heist, this fight, and the final war in Gotham. But then he also uses it just randomly throughout the movie. He basically uses it whenever he can. He's not artistic with it at all. He's like a middle schooler who just figured out PowerPoint animations and throws them into his presentation at every available opportunity. There's no thought of story or even really style that goes into it. He just seems to ask, can I use IMAX? Never, should I use IMAX? It's one of the common themes we'll find throughout his movies we're diving into. Okay, back to the movie at hand. Bane is waiting for Batman on a catwalk. Batman says, "Bane." To which Bane responds,
"Let's not stand on ceremony here, Mr. Wayne."
Which is just kinda awkward dialogue. This line is just to convey that Bane knows Batman is Bruce Wayne, but Bane says it after Batman calls him Bane, like he's suggesting, hey, we don't have to use our alter ego names here, except that Bane is his only name. Now, when praise is merited, I won't hesitate to dish it out. We then get a lot of dialogue from Tom Hardy that is pretty freaking cool.
Peace has cost you your strength. Victory has defeated you.
That choreography should have been redone. He's nowhere near punching Bruce.
You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blinding.
Well, actually that's not exactly true. He saw the sun every day in that prison. That was the whole point. But it is a cool line.
The shadows betray you because they belong to me. Ah, yes. I was wondering what would break first. Your spirit or your body.
Bane really shines in this scene, and Tom Hardy's performance throughout this movie, but especially here, is simply world class. It is the undisputed highlight of the film. With this toned down, grounded version of Bane compared to the comics, Hardy manages to bring a sense of intimidation and menacing to him despite the often bad writing of his character threatening to weigh him down. And I think it really just comes down to Tom Hardy being one of the best actors in the world. In another video in this series, we'll talk in more detail about the performances Nolan gets from his consistently star-studded casts, and how if and when a performance shines, it's typically in spite of Nolan's directing, not because of it. Officer Blake sees Selina Kyle getting into a cab and follows her to the airport. She's trying to run from Bane, but she told Bruce after betraying him that she did it so that they wouldn't kill her. So why does she have to run? I guess she just didn't trust Bane? I mean, I kinda get that. Okay, so Bruce wakes up in the prison that Bane grew up in. He didn't kill Bruce so he could punish him here. He ran cable to the prison and set up a TV so that Bruce could watch the destruction of Gotham from here.
When it is done, and Gotham is ashes, then you have my permission to die.
Cool line, but what's his plan? We see during the finale of the movie that Bane seemingly intends to die along with the rest of Gotham. So how would he make sure that Bruce dies after Gotham is destroyed? Why doesn't Bane lock him up in Gotham so that he can feel the same heat that is incinerating his city? Bane's plans are never very good in this movie, are they? Back in Gotham, Bane takes Miranda, Fox, and some Wayne Enterprises board member to power up the fusion reactor that Bruce conveniently didn't dispose of, and makes Dr. Pavel convert it to a nuclear bomb in a matter of minutes. And for the second time in the movie, every single cop is called to the same spot, this time to be buried in the tunnels under Gotham by Bane's explosives. So I guess Bane somehow knew the cops were gonna close in on his underground hideout at that exact moment? You know what I love about the Joker in The Dark Knight? He's just kind of making things up as he goes along.
Do I really look like a guy with a plan? I'm a dog chasing cars.
His quote-unquote plans are often just reacting to changing circumstances to stoke more chaos, and it works. He doesn't need a perfectly timed coincidence like this for his plans to work because he doesn't have plans. This is incredibly fortunate timing. Bane didn't know that every single cop would be in the tunnels that day. If they had closed in on his location a day earlier or a day later, this part of his plan wouldn't work. And the only people he'd successfully trap underground are Hines Ward's teammates. Maybe I missed something. You can let me know in the comments. Bane then creates the outcome I was hoping for the last time the Chiefs and Eagles played in the Super Bowl and blows up most of the bridges leading out of Gotham, which is very obviously just Pittsburgh. Maybe it's just because I went to college around Pittsburgh and have been in this stadium multiple times that it's so recognizable to me, but that's clearly Heinz Field. You can even see the ketchup bottles on the Jumbotron. I mean, I get that Nolan hates CGI, but really? You couldn't even just airbrush out Heinz Field? There's no effort whatsoever made in this movie to make Gotham City feel like anything other than a generic US city like New York or Pittsburgh. Gotham is characterized by a lot of Gothic architecture to make it feel eerie and dark. But no, this is a grounded movie, so the city itself doesn't have any character. Which I wouldn't complain about, like I don't for The Dark Knight, if the movie was good. But it's not. So there you go. Bane shows a bomb to all the Steelers fans and introduces them to Dr. Pavel as the only man capable of disarming the nuclear bomb he created out of the fusion reactor before killing him. He makes it clear that if anyone tries to flee Gotham or intervene there, the anonymous ordinary citizen will trigger the bomb, destroying Gotham and everyone in it. And I don't really understand Bane and Talia's plan here. They want to destroy Gotham, but why the 5-month clock? Well, I mean, I know why. It's so Bruce can have time to recover and come back to save the day. But why from their perspective? I guess that they're out to prove that Gotham will destroy itself, and they want Bruce to have to watch it happen? But we already litigated this at the end of The Dark Knight.
This city just showed you that it's full of people ready to believe in good.
Are we just rehashing the same villain goal from The Dark Knight? Up to and including turning Harvey Dent from a hero to a fallen idol?
Until they get a good look at the real Harvey Dent. I took Gotham's White Knight, and I brought him down to our level.
But every day in that 5-month period, they give Batman time to recover and escape the pit, which they should absolutely expect, but we'll get there. They give the trapped police time to find a way out, and Bane doesn't know that every cop in the city is trapped in the tunnels. It being a socialist uprising and all, they're opening up the possibility that Talia, a rich corporate president, gets found and killed. They give the US government time to find a way to infiltrate or somehow deal with the situation. I mean, they start doing flyovers immediately. Why do Bane and Talia stay in Gotham? Again, they stay until the very end. It's not like Bruce's return is what forces them not to leave. Why are they insistent on dying with Gotham? Wouldn't they want to go back to the pit and see to Bruce's death? Why are they so confident that with the threat of a bomb looming over the city, the citizens won't band together with their lives on the line to try and stop them? In fact, at the end of the movie, when all the cops fight all of Bane's men, how come it's just the cops? There should be tons of normal citizens too. Bane then reads Jim Gordon's speech on the truth about Harvey Dent and knocks down the walls of Blackgate Prison to release the men imprisoned under the Dent Act. And he presents this as though the citizens of Gotham will agree that the criminals should go free based on the fact that the legislation was named after Harvey Dent and he turned evil at the end of his life. Really? You're telling me people in America are just going to be fine with opening up prisons? Oh. Well, alright then. But seriously, why is this presented like it's a great writing of justice? Like if we had a law that allowed us to more effectively round up child molesters, but it was named after someone who turned out went crazy at the end of his life, you think average people would be like, well, since that guy it's named after is a fraud, let's put all the child molesters back on the streets.
We take Gotham from the corrupt, the rich, and we give it back to you, the people.
Oh wow, I'd forgotten Zoran Mamdani was in this movie. Let's just take a second to remember what the Dent Act did. At the beginning of the movie, the mayor says that because of the legislation, Gotham is without organized crime.
But this city is without organized crime because the Dent Act gave law enforcement teeth in its fight against the mob.
So supposedly, all of these men who have just been let out of Blackgate are members of various crime families and mobs. And yet, when they're let out, we see no indication that these organized crime groups regroup in any measurable way that would absolutely happen. Just another thing where you ask why they made a point about specifying it stopped organized crime. The socialist uprising in Gotham begins, and people are ripping the rich out of their nice homes and apartments. Scarecrow conducts sham trials to sentence them to death for just being rich. It includes someone electrocuting a dog, and it's like Hassan Piker's wet dream. All in all, it's a mostly peaceful time in Gotham. Bane makes a point of saying the police will survive as they learn to serve true justice. What does he mean by this? He means they need to be kept alive for the final battle to happen. That's it. Bane has no reason that makes sense in-universe to keep them alive. He's having innocent rich people killed for having more money than their envious neighbors, but the police are kept alive for reasons. Back in the pit, the prison doctor tells Bruce the story about how Bane was attacked by the other prisoners, and the efforts to heal him left him in great pain that his mask keeps at bay. He goes on to tell him how a mercenary knocked up a warlord's daughter, and the daughter ended up in the pit where she gave birth to a child, and we see that it's the child who escaped the pit. The doctor then strings Bruce up on a rope and punches his spinal vertebrae back into place. All I will say about this is that I rewatched this movie with my wife, a physician assistant who had never seen it before, and at this point she burst out laughing. I mean, how could I make a point better than that? Bruce has a hallucination of Ra's al Ghul where he concludes that Ra's was the mercenary the doctor spoke of. Now, Nolan wants to set up this red herring that the child who escaped the pit was Bane, but he actually just tipped his hand. Because later we see the child escaping by making the jump, which we'll get to, and that child has no mask. But we were just told that Bane got his mask in this prison. So, if you're actually paying attention, this plot twist that Nolan wants to set up has already been spoiled. Also, the child looks like a girl. Just saying. Over the course of a few months, Bruce builds his strength back up, then attempts to make the climb. But when he makes the jump from one platform to the next, he falls short, and he can't believe that a child managed to do it. Well, the child could do it because they were born in this hell, forged in pain. And Bruce can't make the jump because he's not afraid enough of death. He needs to make the climb without the rope, so his fear of death can propel him that extra few inches. Just for good measure, some bats fly out before he makes the jump to give him a little extra shot of fear. And this time, he makes it! Wow! Remember that brace he had to put on earlier for his cartilageless knee to even work? Yeah, I guess he doesn't need that anymore. Let's deal with this now so we can move on from this obtuse pit where good writing goes to die. Obviously, Bane is not the one who made that jump. Talia is. Now, I long jumped in high school. I was nothing special. I mean, I never got outjumped by a white guy, but I wasn't going to states. In any given meet, I outjumped whoever won the girls' side by multiple feet. Here, the idea is that a 10-year-old girl was able to jump further than Batman because she was more scared than him. You buy that, right?
Nope.
This is such a ridiculous decision by Nolan, especially since we don't see Talia do anything in this movie even remotely League of Shadows-y. The entire backstory for Bane and Talia makes no sense. Talia's father abandoned her and her mother to a literal pit, then exiled her protector from the League of Shadows, but she really wants to finish her father's work. Why? Don't ask that. Talia is the one who shows superhuman abilities to escape the pit as a child, not Bane, and she makes no use whatsoever of those skills in the movie. Bane apparently couldn't escape the pit himself, despite the fact that he himself is borderline superhuman because, well, I guess he didn't consider making the jump without the rope, which again is just the dumbest plot point ever to kind of make a point about the movie's theme in an effort to provide Bruce with some sort of an arc. Back in Gotham, Scarecrow's overseeing the sham trials, which... wouldn't everyone in Gotham hate Crane? Like, the ordinary citizens would hate him because he tried to poison their water supply, and the prisoners would hate him because he experimented on them. But whatever, I guess the people put him in charge.
But the people are retarded.
Bruce makes his return, and the first person he goes to see is Selina. Miranda works with the commissioner so that she can get him and the other cops captured. Bruce gets his suit and tech back with help from Catwoman, and while he and Fox are working on the bat, Fox asks him if it flies okay, and Bruce says,
"Yeah, even without the autopilot, thanks."
That's the first time he tells someone that the autopilot still doesn't work. Hours pass, and Gordon and his officers are being forced out onto the death by exile ice, and Batman shows up to trank Bane's men and help him out. He gives him a flare, which Gordon lights and uses to set ablaze a trail of gasoline or something that creates a flaming bat signal on one of the bridges. And I mean, come on. Am I supposed to not comment on the fact that apparently with mere hours to go before a nuclear bomb explodes in Gotham, Batman took time to set up an elaborate pyrotechnics show? Why? Why not just use the bat signal? Is this a nitpick? Yes. Does the fact that it's a nitpick make this any less mush-brained? No. Meanwhile, Officer Blake is trying to set the trapped police free when he gets caught, and Batman has to save him and help him blow a hole in the rubble to create an opening for the cops to walk out, all looking trimmed and clean. I guess Bane was generous enough to send down razors and shaving cream and laundry detergent along with the food and water. These little things matter. These are details that a great director would account for, instead of just being excited that he can use his favorite camera for this scene. Batman gives Catwoman the Batbike to open a path and a tunnel for people to get out of the city. He tells her that they have 45 minutes to save the city and tells her to wait until the fighting starts to blow the hole, and yeah, nobody who tries to go through that hole is going to get clear of the blast radius in time. I mean, they'll have, 30 minutes max to get 6 miles away?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Also, how are they to get the message to people in the next 45 minutes to head for that tunnel? Nobody is spreading the word about this until Blake tells some of the boys to go door to door telling people about it, after the fighting starts. But Selina says after she blows the tunnel clear, she's gonna leave, and she asks Bruce to come with her. Apparently, while Bruce was dead, her opinion of him did a 180. She didn't like him, she didn't like Batman, but because the movie is almost over and Nolan wants Bruce to end up with Selina, she suddenly likes him. We'll go into this non-relationship at the end of the movie, but this change is basically instantaneous. And then the war begins, and the cops get shot at by Bane's men without using their guns at all, which they still would all have with them from when they went into the tunnel, but hey, good guys charging bad guys is just more dramatic, right? Watch this cop in the yellow vest. Look how many of Bane's men just run past him that he ignores. It's almost like he's trying to get to a spot on a stage for a specific extra he's supposed to be fighting. Batman finds Bane amidst the chaos, and we get treated to some world-class dialogue.
You came back to die with your city.
I came back to stop you. Where is it? Where is it? Where are they?
And the final climactic fight between the two is just some punching. Batman doesn't beat Bane by being smarter than him or using gadgets and ingenuity. It's not even as though he's fighting with more fear or something to keep that thematic through line. He just punches him in the mask this time. Remember in The Dark Knight when Nolan introduced the gadget that Batman uses to defeat the Joker almost 2 hours before he actually uses it?
More agile. Perhaps you should read the instructions first.
Yeah. You know how I got these scars?
No, but I know how you got these.
Yeah, that kind of surgical precision is entirely absent in this movie. This one feels lazy, almost like Nolan phoned it in. Miranda stabs Batman and reveals her true identity. She is Talia al Ghul.
Ghouls?
We already talked about how ridiculous it is that she escaped the pit. Hilariously, Bane is in disbelief that Batman could make that climb and escape after he watched a 10-year-old girl do it. Oh, while all this is going on, Gordon and his men are trying to get a radio interference device on the bomb, going from truck to truck before they find the correct one, and that sequence is fine. They just do it so easily you wonder why they haven't been able to do anything about it in the last 5 months before now. But as Talia is explaining the truth to Bruce...
You must be wondering how we came to this moment, Mr. Wayne.
Let me see if I recollect. Some stuff happened. You sucked my dick. I hadn't showered that day, and I fight crime in a rubber suit. Really seals in the flavor.
She explains that she wasn't able to forgive her father until Bruce murdered him. Well, first of all, Bruce didn't kill him. He just didn't have to save him. Remember?
I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Yeah, that line sucked. But second of all, you couldn't forgive him, then he died, so you did? How does that work? And you not only forgave him, but vowed to finish his mission to destroy Gotham?
He was trying to kill millions of innocent people.
Innocent is a strong word to throw around Gotham, Bruce.
Okay, that line, because Nolan has spent 3 movies, particularly the last 2, treating Gotham like it's just Pittsburgh, means nothing. It's not even like it's Philadelphia. The Dark Knight showed us that there are lots of good people in Gotham whom the Joker couldn't corrupt. This movie tells us at the beginning that Gotham has been in an age of peace since The Dark Knight. It doesn't become a bad place again until Bane and Talia intervene. The Joker saw the world in such a way that he seemed to be so crazy he had almost horseshoed around again to become sane. These villains' motives make absolutely no sense. This movie would be a lot better without Talia in it. Just portray Bane as a fanatical devotee of the League of Shadows who resurrected it after Ra's died. Have him be the one who escaped the pit. It adds to his mystique rather than making a 10-year-old girl stronger than him. Talia's whole involvement in this is detrimental to everything she touches, and we'll see that even more at the end of the movie with Bruce and Selina. And I seriously can't understand for the life of me why she and Bane seem to insist on dying when they destroy Gotham. Like, Ra's didn't plan to die. Talia acts like she's been planning this for so long that her plot against Bruce has cut much deeper because of her patience. Why? How?
How? How? I don't know!
You didn't make him suffer a whole lot. Not nearly as much as he suffered in The Dark Knight. Is it because you slept with him?
That was a cruel ploy. Sign me up for another.
That actually doesn't make sense because she didn't plan for Bruce to return. She planned to be in Gotham when the nuke goes off, meaning Bruce would never find out that she betrayed him. She would be dead, and he would assume that it was all Bane's doing, as that's the only information he has. Meanwhile, Blake is trying to get the boys across the bridge where Bane's men have coerced the federal troops to not let anyone cross lest they detonate the bomb. And rather than explaining to them that the bomb is going to go off in a matter of minutes because it's actually a time bomb that's about to run out, which is why they're choosing now to get people out of the city because who cares if the bomb gets detonated now versus going off in 10 minutes, he just disobeys the officer and starts walking towards him, prompting them to blow up the bridge. Because everyone in this movie is a lukewarm Pop-Tart.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb!
As Miranda heads to the bomb to secure it, Bane goes to kill Batman, and Catwoman saves the day by blasting him with the Batbike's cannon. What a disappointing ending to this imposing villain we set up. I'm sure glad it wasn't really Batman who ended up defeating either of the villains in this movie. As they go after the bomb, trying to redirect its truck to the entrance of the reactor so they can reconnect the core, Catwoman uses the Batbike as if she'd been riding it for years, as opposed to her getting on it for the first time 10 minutes ago. The truck drives over a ledge and Miranda dies, I think. But before she awkwardly falls asleep, she activates the emergency flood to destroy the reactor. Something that she and Bane probably would have, or at least should have, done 5 months ago. But we gotta create our drama at the expense of the character's intelligence, don't we? So as an alternative plan, well, I think I can just play the dialogue that explains it. It's pretty quick.
I can get it out over the bay.
Set it to fly out over the water that eject?
No autopilot.
And that is the second time that Bruce makes a point to mention that the autopilot doesn't work. Why? Why tell Fox that the autopilot still doesn't work? What does he gain from lying to him? Why tell these people? I feel like the case you would make in defense of it is that Bruce wants this to be the end of Batman, so he wants people to think that he died so he can move on from it. The problem with that is that everyone he tells about the autopilot not working knows he's Batman. Fox knows, Catwoman knows, and because he gives him a blatant hint, Gordon now knows. So what's the point? Well, obviously, it's purely for the audience's benefit. There's a term in storytelling called a red herring, when a writer gives you misleading information so you believe one thing that distracts you from seeing the truth about what is really going on in the story. It's a staple in mysteries. Read any Agatha Christie novel and you'll come across countless. A quick example, and spoilers for the third Harry Potter installment. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, we're given every reason to believe that Sirius Black sold out Harry's parents to Voldemort and has escaped from Azkaban to murder Harry as well. He's in jail specifically for the brutal murder of Peter Pettigrew and a dozen muggles. All they could find of Pettigrew was his finger. And throughout the movie, that idea is reinforced. Harry's parents made their friend, Sirius, secret keeper, the only one who knew how to see through the spell that was protecting them from Voldemort. Before escaping Azkaban, he was heard muttering to himself, he's at Hogwarts, because he read a news article about Ron's family that mentions that Ron is friends with Harry. He breaks into the Gryffindor third year's dormitory and mistakenly stands over Ron's bed holding a knife. In the end, though, it turns out that he's actually innocent. And all the misleading information we've been fed suddenly makes sense as we look at it in a new light. Peter Pettigrew was made the Potter's actual secret keeper in an attempted diversion. Sirius confronted him after Voldemort murdered Harry's parents, and Pettigrew blew up the street, cut off his own finger, and transformed into a rat to go into hiding. It wasn't Harry's name in the article that caught Sirius's eye. It was the photo where he could see Ron's rat that was missing a toe. Sirius wasn't in the Gryffindor common room looking for Harry, he was looking for Pettigrew, who'd been hiding for 12 years as Ron's pet rat. None of the information was outright false, we just lacked the whole picture. That's what makes a good red herring. If Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban included a scene where Sirius actually said to himself, fully lucid, "I got the Potters killed and now I'm gonna finish the job and kill Harry," that's no longer a red herring. That's just lying to the audience. And that is what the end of The Dark Knight Rises gives us. Nolan doesn't set up a red herring, he just straight up lies to his audience. He tells us there's no way Batman can use the autopilot to get the bomb away from the city, that he has to manually fly it out over the bay, even showing a shot of him flying the bat mere seconds before the bomb goes off. And when we find out later that he actually did fix the autopilot, that he wasn't in the bat, we don't say, "Oh, now I get it." We say, then why did you explicitly tell me otherwise? This is the cheapest of all writing tricks, because Nolan, especially since 2010, isn't all that good of a writer. He wants the audience to have two endings. He wants us to feel the emotion of Batman dying, but also feel the satisfaction of Bruce getting the ending he deserves. How often do we criticize that kind of crap today when it comes to Disney and Star Wars and Marvel? But Nolan just somehow gets a pass? And at the burial of Bruce Wayne, who's there? Only people who know he's Batman. These are the only people on the planet who think that Bruce Wayne is dead. He's currently gallivanting around Italy with Selina, likely getting recognized on a daily basis as he allows the most important people in his life, the people who love him, to suffer with the belief that their friend is dead and they couldn't save him. Alfred weeps over his grave. Fox, in his mourning, brings in men to tell him how he could have fixed the autopilot system on the Bat, only for them to reveal to him that it was fixed 6 months ago by Bruce himself. And as all this is going on, thousands of Blackgate prisoners have been released from the prison, and a good chunk of the city's police force has been mowed down, and Bruce is going to do nothing to help Gotham in cleaning up that mess. Nolan includes a couple of lip service shots of the police, outnumbered 20-1, supposedly subduing all those criminals, and it's laughable how obviously the few police left would not be able to handle them. Bruce is not being heroic. Not in the slightest. He's abandoning his city when it still needs his help to clean up the mess that he wasn't able to prevent. He's abandoning his friends as they mourn his death. He's incredibly selfish and unreasonably cruel to those that love him most. Did I miss anything before I get to Selina and Bruce? There looks to be a little tribute to Heath Ledger at the dedication of the Batman statue. I'd feel better about it if this movie was half as good as The Dark Knight. Bruce ensures that Gotham's orphans will be cared for in his name. He directs Blake, whose real name is Robin, to the Batcave, and I could not care less. He leaves what's left of his fortune to Alfred, and it looks like they really never did correct the fraud that took place at the stock market. Wait, what? His will is being read? Bruce Wayne successfully faked his own death? How? The moment he stepped out of his Lambo earlier in the movie for the first time in like 8 years, the paparazzi was immediately on him. He's gonna walk around for the rest of his life looking like Bruce Wayne and nobody is going to recognize him and realize he's alive? Do you understand how insane that is? That's like Elon Musk faking his own death and the entire world letting him walk around without anyone saying, "Hey, wait a minute, that's Elon Musk." He probably wouldn't make it 24 hours. I think the idea is he and Selina both used the clean slate. That plot device would work for her, but it's not like it Men in Blacks or Doctor Stranges the entire world so that nobody even recognizes Bruce Wayne. And yes, the movie ends with Alfred's dream coming true. He's at his little cafe in Florence and he looks up and sees Bruce across the cafe with a girl, Selina, because of course. I mean, remember all the chemistry they had throughout the movie? Remember how their relationship was developed throughout the movie and you could see so many sparks between them? And how it wasn't just Selina hating Bruce because he was rich and selling him out to Bane? Remember like 15 minutes ago when Bruce was making it his priority to find Miranda and come back and save her?
Awkward.
Yeah. Nolan really can't write romance to save his life. Wait until we talk about the end of Interstellar. Bruce and Selina have next to no chemistry. The entire movie, Bruce's girl was Miranda/Talia. Nolan tries to switch courses on a dime so he has Catwoman plant a forced awkward kiss on Batman. And because she kissed him, now they're together, I guess. Just so you know, viewers, this is not how it works in real life. If you try this, you will probably not end up in a relationship with that person. I can't guarantee that, but probably not. Also, it looks like Alfred leaves the cafe without paying for his drink. Presumably he's just gonna have Bruce pay for it. But Bruce is broke. He doesn't have any money. In fact, Alfred now has all of his money. Garbage in, garbage out. That's the point of this series. If the script, the story of a movie is bad, then it doesn't matter how many impressive visuals or shots that take up the whole screen or big name actors there are, the movie will be bad. You can paint a nice picture on a mound of crap and shoot it with an expensive camera, but it's still a mound of crap. The Dark Knight Rises is grade A crap. It isn't Dunkirk, which reveals problems with Nolan but isn't inherently a bad movie, or Oppenheimer, which is a pretty solid movie, just incredibly dishonest in its premise. It's poorly written from start to finish, shot with no consistent stylistic vision, featuring idiotic, sometimes assassinated characters weighing down good actors, and a focus on getting the payoffs, beats, and shots desired without doing the work to earn them, the problem plaguing Christopher Nolan for the last decade and a half. I want to hear from you. What do you think of the format of this first installment in this series? Do you like the long-form, scene-by-scene analysis of the movie, or does it need to be broken up? Should I do the same thing for the next movie? Should I break it up into separate videos? Or should I skip the deep dives altogether and make each video about one specific aspect or pattern with Nolan's writing and pull from various movies in one video? Let me know in the comments and we'll see you for the next installment, which will come at some point. I don't know. I guess subscribe so you don't miss it.